All right, so while everybody else sat around, essentially what happens is there's basically where people do a bunch of smart demonstrations in Mormon Club, and then they start blackmailing up, and then they attempt to blackmail into the CIA. So essentially, the smart demonstrations are like. So essentially, in Mormon Club, they each, all five of them, would have done 666 smartish demonstrations. And then they would have blackmailed up. See, all I do is that AI profile that I have on dark web essentially moves around, basically. And that then I just do smart demonstrations all the time. And so theoretically, I probably have maybe this many smart demonstrations. And then dumb will probably have 144. But these 144 probably, more than likely, will be theoretically scattered through this system down to here. They might have a couple or something in the Mormon Club. And so that is where, theoretically, which has one here, probably one here, probably one here, probably one here, and probably one here. Maybe she has 5. Maybe she might have more. And that is where essentially each one of these is 784 smart demonstrations. Each one. Each one. So essentially, the hierarchy of that stuff is based on who has the most posted demonstrations or something. And so I might have more. This is where, when it comes to battling this group, as a group, they'll have this, and that then, as a group, they're theoretically and that is essentially what you do in the dark web. You do smart demonstrations and you attempt to get those posted in place of blackmails. And that essentially it's like every time it comes to a point where I'm supposed to do something, then I just do smart demonstrations. That goes in, and then I get another number, basically. And so these people, theoretically they would have maybe toned in a computer or something, like in 5 different ways or something like that, and would have been doing these instead of demonstration, smartness, anything smart, basically. And that when this battle happens, they each have 666. But see, what this is that basically silicone is square, and that it operates around a number like this, and that essentially I know that, and that basically I fill in these. They might have some in there also. because they didn't fill in the whole thing. And see, that's like where these people that do dark web, that are Satanists or S&M clubbers, they always stop at this number. And so that's where, as a group, I just want to remind them that their 5 people have like this number. And essentially, as one person, I probably more, but I theoretically have this number. And that if you were to include that, then that would be 3 times the 3330. And that is where some of the things that I know about dark web are stuff like this. That basically, as a 5 people group, anything beyond that, and that if they don't fall into that situation, then they should go back into the Mormon temple system or whatever it is, and they should do some more smart genius demonstrations. And then a lot of times they just end up sitting there, not moving and not talking. And that is where they are doing the cyber knock for some enemy, Islamic terrorism. And so that's kind of what that means. If they won't go beyond that type of stuff, see, the whole idea is that other people, nobody knew about this stuff. And everybody was uploading farts and snorting coke and shit like that. Okay, that's pretty much. And that's where some people probably would have stumbled upon the reality of the ability to upload smart demonstrations. And so it's kind of something that they don't talk about on dark web because they don't want these people to know that because Mormon Temple tells them. And that's where a long time ago I tried to tell people, like, you gotta try to do the demonstration first. I mean, honestly, attempt to do a smart demonstration first. And if you have any knowledge about typing in the tone code, and if you know how to be in some of these theoretical dark webs, you know, if you get an empty box, try putting in a smart demonstration first. Basically, that this is the stuff that this is like where these systems are made to be keeping people dumber, okay? They don't like people doing the things that I do, right? Because there's people in dark webs that they get these videos and they place them in there in place of blackmailing. And that gives my profile an ability of dynamically moving throughout all of this in a smart version of it's like not the contract system, there's a smart version, right? There is. And so everybody that does regular dark web, they do hacking stuff, okay? And so there's these all have a theoretical, just like there at Military Pentagon. It's like this is engineer systems and stuff. But essentially, there's a smart system that these people do dumb, boring military strategy stuff. And then on the other side, people do intellectual intelligence analysis, like the Jack Ryan analysis stuff. And so that's on the other side. This is troop movement discussions and demonstrations in those ways and analysis and paperwork, and you know, it has aspects of dumbness, but it's basically considered it's like this stuff is made for like a bunch of data to be analyzed by an AI. That's part of it too. And so say they get a bunch of pictures and a bunch of Russian classified information, then it sits in like a little spot, and then it does like a data mine analysis type of stuff with cross-referencing from weird boilerplate kind of strategy shit. Okay, that is what this is for. And that essentially it has like missing aspects, and that is where the missing aspects can be filled in with smart demonstrations. Also, those become somewhat of a theoretical zero time exploit that then essentially instead of a fat sitting there, the video sits there. That's what it is in this stuff. And essentially, this stuff is all ripped off shareware pedo copies. So when a demonstration gets in there, it essentially builds a zero time exploit or whatever that would theoretically be. And it builds a spot for like a fat or a dumb to be sitting in, basically. And so this is like where they used to have this outside theory of putting a fat in a dumb. That would have meant essentially they would just do something else other than listening or looking or seeing the stuff. And it was kind of like a human patch terminal that now has the ability of being patched by these demonstration videos and stuff. And that then these essentially are the phase copies of building NASA's AI in ways that were getting ripped off. And see, as this system built, the theoretical virtualization stood in there, but then people started shoving in the copies of this stuff behind as it phased up. And so these have a theoretical fat and dumb, like terminal ability. And that is where then that becomes like the seeing what people do on their computer screen kind of shit. And that is where then people start to see what they're doing and shit. And that stuff has an ability of being thrusted up. I mean, even this. I mean, theoretically, it starts at like it starts at like a Watson version of this. And then it builds this up. And then once it finalized it, basically, then the second phase was to start a human intelligence version, because that's the next level of AI. And so NASA does this stuff on a timeline. They really do.